And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say it
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to Hack City. Joe DeLeone and Sean Anderson, 2 former college football players from the University of Rhode Island, and today we are returning to share with you our FCS Football Stats Perform Top 25 Preseason Ballots. We're going to be going through them. More of a deep dive on the top 5, but we're going to read through, share with you who we picked, who we put in there, and a little bit of reasoning on some of these schools, and again, especially why we went with the top 5s the way that we did. We're starting to kick things up for the FCS season, as we always do. We'll be tracking, following. Everything that we've done in the past is going to get rolling in the next month. It's August, which is the month of football kicking off. Before we get to that, though, Sean, can you just share with our listeners very quickly a word from BetOnline?
Well, if you want to start throwing some futures down, like Houston Christian being in the top 10 or final 25, however you want to do it, BetOnline's where you want to do all jokes. BetOnline, that's where you want to do your baseball summer betting. If you want to bet on the Olympics, you want to bet on whatever you want to bet on. You're fighting. That's where you need to go. When the game's over, head on over to the Ultimate Online Casino as well. Get in on a game of blackjack or poker. I know you're fiending, and we just got a taste of the NFL football this week with the Hall of Fame game. Everyone's starting to itch and I'm at least itching, getting ready to go and get everything revved up. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BLEAV, that's BLEAV, for your 50% bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet online, the game starts here.
So as I mentioned, coverage for FCS football is now going to ramp up for us, meaning those who are familiar with the show, we are going to be launching the vote for our FCS football trip coming very, very soon. We've done it 3 times now.
Yes.
We've gone to South Dakota State twice. We went to Campbell once in just a very ironic twist, the complete opposite of our experience at the South Dakota State. But as we've done it, we've allowed for listeners to vote and help us pick where we go to a game. Anywhere in the country. We will go, we will show up, we will tailgate with the listeners, with fans of the teams. It's been a fun experience, even though we got just kind of stranded at Campbell. But We're going to open that vote next week. I'm going to remind everybody on Monday when this episode drops, and also going to be putting that vote out on Thursday. I kind of want to go to Idaho. I know I'm wearing the Idaho shirt right now. I'm not an Idaho fan. I kind of want to go to Idaho. We missed the chance to meet Rack, and I would like for that chance to be reignited.
Well, it was good to hear that Rack was in our neck of the woods and that possibly he would be back. I'd love to go to Idaho, but there's been a lot of promises coming out of the Idaho faithful, and they have not held up. I would love to. It seems fun. The listeners that we have met and talked with, and well, they've bombarded us with. Maybe I don't need to go to Idaho. maybe we could go somewhere else.
No. I do want to go to Montana. It seems like Montana's would be interesting because I think there's a really nice grouping of Montana fans who like us and like the show, and I think would be very welcoming. And then there's seemingly a bucket of folks that just really hate our guts, and I'm curious if any of them would say anything to us, which I doubt that they would. But all right, let's actually get into talking about our top 25 ballots here. I want to rip through first, reading off our 25 through 15s, and just kind of reading through, and then maybe asking any questions upon either of us to the opposite person. My 25, I went with Northern Iowa. Number 24, I went with UT Martin. 23, Elon. 22, Tarleton State. 21, Eastern Illinois. 20, Albany. 19, Western Carolina. 18, Lafayette. 17, UC Davis. 16, Weber State. And then 15, I had Chattanooga. Yours? What do you got?
I have 25, Lafayette. 24, Florida A&M. 23, Tarleton State, which is crazy that we're both drinking the Kool-Aid this early. But
well, they're more established as an FCS program now, so I think that it's a little... That was kind of my logic. I was like, well, they were really strong last year. Not like a crazy amount of roster turnover. I don't think it's unfair
And
to
I've
keep
seen
them in there.
Other FCS pundits have been high on them as well, and they are smarter than me. So I'll do. They made me research Tarleton. I'm saying, okay, maybe they're bringing back some talent. 22, EWU, 21, Alabama State. Incarnate Word at 20 for me. 19, Duquesne. I think they go back to back. 18, UT Martin. 17, Sac State. 16, William & Mary. 15, Nichols.
By the way, quick shout out Sam Herder, Blue Bloods. They were their preseason information guys.
They helped.
Were very, very helpful. It is more impossible than ever to keep track of who stayed and who left. So Sam Herder, they're the GOAT.
Zach McKinnell.
Yeah. They're doing a show together now. Their show's probably going to be a lot
here
better
we
than
go.
this one.
It'd be nice. We landed on the moon and we're seeing their rocket ship go right to Mars.
The only question I have for you, Sac State, William & Mary, you seem a little lower on them than the just general consensus. What's the reasoning?
I got shafted last year by him. William & Mary.
Don't give the
I'm not
whole
trying to, but
revenge voting.
It's not revenge voting.
Oh.
It's not. They're still top 25, which should be an honor. But Sacramento State and their Caden Bennett questioning and whatever they're doing at quarterback we couldn't solve, which is good. They will win games by having a system that is unsolvable. But until I can really crack it open and say, okay, this team is a top 10 team, they're in the teens for me. Same with William & Mary. William & Mary had tons of promise, and they have a lot of guys on their team that you and I both like. Charles Grant, I like their quarterback a lot. They had some stumbles last year, but I saw them in person. It's a confident team. It's a bigger FCS team than I've seen in previous years. And I think William & Mary still has a good direction, but they are not in my top. They're not in my top 10. And I have some more CAA teams up top.
Yeah, Sac State, I don't mind. I had them at 7, which we're going to get to in a second. But William & Mary, I do disagree with because you mentioned Charles Grant. They have the best offensive lineman in FCS football. And if anyone wants to disagree with me, the NFL agrees with my opinion. He is a very, very gifted player. He is up to, I think, like 295 right now, 300 pounds.
That's dangerous.
He is going to be drafted the highest out of any of the FCS players, except maybe David Walker, who we'll probably end up bringing up when we do our reaction to the FCS All-Americans. That show's going to come out soon. And they also got Bronson Yoder back, man. Like, I think that there's just a lot to like about a lot of cohesiveness. I'm buying in a lot of these teams that didn't get picked apart by the transfer portal. So I'm going to stick with my offensive lineman. Do you have any qualms with my 25 through 15?
You had UC Davis a little low, didn't you?
No.
I am high on UC Davis.
I had him at 17. Where do you have him?
I have, and I hate to bury it, 9, UC Davis.
Okay, what's your reasoning? And then we'll share our...
Miles Hastings, good quarterback. Lan Larison, Walter Payton Award winner or award favorite, and Rex Connors in the safety position. Are you kidding me?
I love Rex Connors. He's another guy who is very under the radar in NFL draft circles. Know of some folks that also really love him.
UC Davis makes sense to me this year. They've been so sneaky the last couple years, and I don't want to get caught by them again. They have my attention from the get-go this year, and I think that they will have a top 10 finish.
I thought 17 was fair because I just feel like they always...
It is fair because it's UC Davis.
They always get knocked around by the schedule, and they always finish at like 15 to 20, and it kind of, this team reminds me of that. By the way, Ryan Roberts, I have to bring up. So Charles Grant and Rex Connors are my two babies, if you will, of the last scouting cycle, where I found them very under the radar, was really big on them. This was when I was doing work for RPM, which was a scouting consulting firm. And Ryan asked me to watch them, but didn't know anything about them. And then now he swears that he found them. I know that he's messing with me, but it is the worst bit ever. Ryan, I know you're listening to this. You stink when you do that, and it pisses me off.
See, you're trying to claim your territory.
We were talking to agents in Indianapolis, the ones that were close to signing Rex Connors, and he's like, and I was like, yeah, I'm really glad I found him. And Ryan goes like, what do you mean I found him? And I'm like, what? Trying to steal that from me?
I'm sure you let it be right in front of the agents and didn't create a whole
I didn't create I didn't do that, but I think afterwards I was like, dude. All right, my 14 through 6 as I have it. 14 Idaho, I'm a little low on them, but I think it's completely justified because they got picked apart. Giovanni McCoy's gone. Giovanni McCoy left, and he was a premier underrated quarterback just from the national landscape up until the transfer portal opening when everybody was like, hey, you can sling it. We want you. Not fully Cam Ward, but kind of in the Cam Ward bucket.
Anthony Wood's gone also.
Anthony Woods is also gone.
Utah got a stud.
He went to Utah. I was going to say, where did he end up? Illinois State, very underrated offensive line. Furman at number 12 is always really good. SIU, number 11. 10, I'm buying the Central Arkansas buzz. David Walker is a freaking dude. Incarnate Word at number 9. Dude, I like Zach Calzada. I
think he's solid. He's very good.
I take it a step further, man. He was really, really promising. Not promising. He struggled a bit at Texas A&M, and I think that he has entered the perfect spot for him to really flourish. And I continue to see positive things from him last year. As I mentioned, high on William and Mary at 8, Sac State at 7, and then Villanova. Dude, they bring back like their whole offense. Anyone who wants to argue the CAA bias, I don't have any connections to Villanova, nor would we want to support them because they were a bitter rival of ours to an extent. But Connor Watkins, the whole freaking offense feels like it's coming back, except for a couple of receivers.
And I think that they're Villanova, and I'll get to Villanova later, but I think that Villanova, they are a running back replacement machine where it is, okay, we had a really good guy, now we have another really good guy. But my 14 here, North Carolina Central, repeat the dominance. That Howard loss was crazy last season. So crazy that I felt like it was almost intentional just so they could get into the playoff.
Is Davius Richard, didn't he?
Doesn't matter.
Graduate?
Doesn't matter to me. Trey Oliver is a fantastic coach, and that program is still heading up back-to-back 10-win seasons, or at least 19 wins in the last 2 years, if my memory serves me right. 13, I had Central Arkansas.
He's on the Roughnecks.
Yeah, that's fine. 13, I had Central Arkansas.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
I mean, North Carolina Central will be fine.
Sorry. Okay.
Will McIlvain, I trust him. I've been a Shunderick Powell fan. He's been a pod favorite of mine. And then David Walker's a problem. 12, Southern Illinois. No more Nick Baker. That'll be an exciting season. But they had the number 4 defense in the FCS last year. Even if they keep it within the top 30, they're going to finish in the top 25, if that made any sense. Chattanooga at 11 for me. Marlon Taylor, Mack Truck. Javon Watley's a menace on the outside, and it's the SoCon. South Dakota at 10. I'm a little lower on SoCon than some of the other national guys, or a little lower on South Dakota than some of the other national guys. I saw their ceiling last year, and I liked it.
Took me a second to register that. Really?
South Dakota at 10. Bowman's good. Carter Bell is good, but I feel like I saw their ceiling last year. I didn't like how they went out.
You can't say that you saw their ceiling, but then they're bringing back all of those guys. Oh, no.
That's what.
All right, I'm going to save my take.
UC Davis at 9 for me. I explained that a bit already. Number 8, Albany. Losing Reese Poffenbarger blows. I'm not going to deny that.
Too high on Albany.
But they still have...
They lost like their whole defense.
I really like Griffin Waddell. I like that he was last year's CAA Offensive Rookie of the Year. I like it. They have a dynamic running back.
So one guy.
And we'll see. We'll see what Miles Burkett can do.
Terrible logic. One guy is enough for you to go, yeah, that's enough to put them...
You picked Central Arkansas for David Walker. Give me a break. I'm going with Griffin Waddell, who torched
You also
teams.
mentioned McElwain, who's coming back.
Yeah, he's solid.
They're a really well-rounded team.
You didn't mention McElwain.
Albany got picked apart in the portal. They are a team that got picked apart. I almost didn't put them in my top 25.
That's fine. That's where you have them in your top 25. I think 2 CAA teams are in the top 10.
I can't believe you have them ahead of South Dakota. Ahead of South Dakota is insane.
7, I had Idaho. Idaho brings back 4 starting offensive linemen, which I like. So when they have to bring in the McCoy replacement, at least he'll be protected decently. And they had a top 30 defense last year, is returning 8 starters, which I like. And at 6, I had Furman. They don't have Tyler Huff, but I like Carson Jones. Their schedule's a little tough, but I'm not going to be wrong about this Furman ship again. I've been wrong about them so many times. At times they look rough in the offseason, and then in November, they've willed themselves to 8 wins. I think Clay Hendricks is building a machine at Furman that refuses to not make the playoffs. So that caps off my 15-6.
All right, alternating back and forth here to wrap us up. Montana State at number 5 for me was who I had there. And don't shake your head. This one makes perfect sense. Their offensive line was picked apart by FBS transfers, guys moving up to the FBS. Now, a lot of their secondary does come back. Their front 7 dual monsters and Brody Grebe and Kenneth Eden the 4th were very productive last year. They are returning. And then, of course, we have to give credit to the rushing attack that was the best and the most dominant in FCS last year. Sean Chambers is gone, but Tommy Mellott gets Julius Davis and Jared White into the fold. Montana State is going to be in that upper conversation yet again. I'm just a bit wary with offensive line turnover specifically. It's one of the few positions, O-line, D-line, when there's a lot of guys shuffling in and out, that I have to give a little pause, wait and see what do the early weeks look like. Do they hit the ground running? Because it is a position group that requires cohesiveness.
It's not unfair because that's your scouting and analyzation preference on that, but they run such a quick offense that I think the offensive line, with a majority of the snaps being 1 to 2 second developers, can get the job done. My number 5 was Villanova. I love Connor Watkins. I'm really excited to see who they throw in at running back this season because I'm sure he'll go for 808, just like every Villanova running back does. Watkins for 6 on the ground, or Watkins to Jalen Sanchez. That's going to be the offense, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to torch the CAA. So I think Villanova wins it and makes it semi deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, having Villanova in your top 5, I don't think is a
I don't
bad
think I'm
step.
that out there with it.
Was it Youngstown that they smoked in the first round? I forget who it was. It was like the first team that they played, they completely blew out. I forget who it was, but that is a reason to be invested because you know that they're going to show up in a primetime situation. My number 4, and I'm just baffled by the fact that you had South Dakota at 10. My number 4 was South Dakota. I'm very high on Aiden Bauman, who gets back his 2 top targets in Carter Bell and then tight end JJ Galbraith. Their running back duo is completely returning. We talked so much about Travis Thies and Charles Pierre. That is maybe one of the best 1-2 punches. I don't want to say they are the best, but
could be
one of the best 1-2 punches returning in FCS football that didn't lose anybody. 4 starting offensive linemen coming back. And then Sam Herder pointed this out. Thank you for Sam Herder for putting this in his preview. Their offensive line's like enormous. It's like Georgia level big. They've got a 6'7 guy, a 6'8 guy. It is freakishly large. I just see this offense as one of the best in the country. And you have a quarterback who's been starting for a period of time, who's been getting better every single season. I can't doubt that. I'm baffled that they were number 10. Albany was ahead of them for you.
Yeah, they were. And I'm not knocking South Dakota with a 10.
Kinda.
I didn't like how they went out because last year they had a chance against North Dakota State. They played them twice and then they got beat down, blown out in the playoffs after they beat them that year. And then
last year. We're talking about this year.
I understand, but that was still a culture, and maybe they adjust it. But to have the regular season win and then lose in the playoffs to North Dakota State, that's not good. That's not a good track record for me. If it had flipped, they lost to North Dakota State in the regular season, beat them in the postseason, I think I have them up higher.
How many times did Georgia fall short before they started hitting the ground?
It took a couple times. My number 4, Montana.
Oh my God, you do.
What?
You just love to piss the Montana fans off. Are you serious with this?
Why can't they be 4?
I put them at 3, and I was I actually, when I was doing my notes for the show after I had done my ballot notes,
why is 4?
I regret not putting them at 2.
Why?
All right, go ahead. Give me your spiel.
Why should they be at 2? Clifton McDowell, gone. I thought he was really solid last year.
All right, go ahead.
All right. They have some big-time offensive weapons. They're at 4 because of Junior Bergen and Eli Gilman. Those are 2 absolute weapons in the FCS, and it's a miracle that they stayed at Montana because they are so solid and dangerous. But their QB options this year are going to be Keali Ayat,
Keali Ayat. That was the pronunciation I found. Apologies, by the way, for mispronouncing. That was what I found on a news broadcast, so I think that's correct.
Logan Fife and Caden Hout. One of them is going to be serviceable and be a good FCS quarterback. One of the 3 will. And that'll put them in the top 5, but they're top 5 right now. Great offensive weapons. Let's see what happens. I'm not crowning them without knowing their quarterback. That's not something that I do personally.
Last year, how often did we talk about how Clifton McDowell just kind of did enough to support what was a really dominant defense in a really good run game? He was a game manager. He did enough to keep the offense moving. But I think that this is a team that does not need a premier quarterback to succeed. And honestly, Ayat who has family connections to the program. I believe I saw that his father is in the Ring of Honor or whatever the name for that award or recognition is for Montana. But on top of this, they have personally, I believe, the best running back room in the country with Eli Gilman and Nick Osmo. They're extremely experienced offensive line. Pretty much all of it comes back. All of those dudes that were road graders that were running over every single defensive line that ran over North Dakota State's defensive line that we touted as unbreakable and unpenetrable. And then on top of this, you mentioned Junior Bergen. They have some of the best weapons in the country with Junior Bergen, Keelan White, Aaron Fontes, and then Cole Grossman, who might be the best tight end in FCS football. This is a ridiculously dominant offense that didn't lose anybody except for one position at quarterback that I frankly think is interchangeable of who steps in there.
That's fine. Where do you have them at?
I have them at 3. So
Okay,
there's my 3
That's
argument.
fine. My 3, North Dakota State. Is that fair or is that going to get a bunch of pushback? Is Bison Rance going to be upset about that?
because I almost moved. Moved them back to
North
3.
Dakota State.
I have them in my 2. But
They're fine with me at 3. They returned 4 all-conference defensive players, my favorite being safety Cole Wisniewski. Cam Miller looked much more settled in the playoffs last year, which I loved seeing because it has been a slog with him and our assessment of him over the last 3 years. I think we've been very fair to him, but it has been a slog. And last year, I really started seeing some bright spots, and I think there's still that rough and tough Midwest team that's going to win a ton of games. So they're 3 for me. I think that's solid, and I think that's fair.
I had them at number 2, and again, I don't disagree with that because in retrospect of looking back at the notes on this and when I was preparing to sit down for this show, I was debating moving Montana up to 2 and then back to 3, but they need to be in this conversation. I'm not all in on them as a number 1 team because new head coach. We don't know exactly what to expect with Entz leaving and going to USC. I know it helps to have familiarity with the program stepping in there. That is going to certainly help. They are losing a little bit on offense as they're losing 3 offensive linemen, running backs, 2 of their top receivers. I need to know who is going to step up. TK Marshall was productive. I think he's going to be a really strong rushing option for them. But having Cam Miller and Cole Payton is the real driving force for the run game. That is what is going to continue to move the ball forward. The biggest part where I'm the most excited is their front 7 looks just as nasty as last year. They're bringing back 9 guys who were starters last year. And then you mentioned Cole Wisniewski, who is a freak. I mean, I'm curious to know which Big Ten programs might have picked up the phone and tried to convince him to come play for them.
Yeah, North Dakota State stays loaded. You had them at 2, correct?
Yeah, who's your number 2?
My number 2, South Dakota State.
Terrible take.
It's a fine take. And after they had a deservedly so picked apart a lot of guys in the NFL, we can't deny Mark Gronowski anymore. The guy is legit. In his career, 70 touchdowns to 13 picks is phenomenal in college. And plus, I love that they return their defensive anchor in Adam Bach. I am Adam Bach truther, Adam Bach lifer. This is where I stand. And I think they've been there before. I think they end up back in the national championship. I think they have an incredible season, and I think Gronowski could go triple back-to-back Walter Paytons. He could do it.
Wait, he's only got 1. Does he have 2?
Did he go 2 in a row?
No, he didn't. Yeah, you made that up.
I might have made that up. Oh, they went back-to-back championship.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
That's where I got caught up on.
They, I understand, did put a number of guys into the NFL, especially on their offensive line with Garrett Greenfield, Mason McCormick. They blew up the NFL Combine. I can't doubt them. They're my number 1. Jackrabbit fans, Sean is spitting in your face right now.
I don't believe so.
They have the best player in the country coming back to lead their team. And I know that Isaiah Davis is gone. We do still have Amar Johnson, who was super productive. Angel Johnson had 8.9 yards per carry last year. Bach is super important. And then I think the safety room is unbelievable. Tucker Large and Cale Reeder. They are a constantly rebuilding, refueling type of a team.
They're a machine. I'm not denying it. They are a machine, and 2 should not be seen as a slight, especially but I believe in my number 1. I really do. And you had South Dakota State as what, your number 1?
Yeah, they're my number 1.
I had Montana State.